So this is Hexawise's brand new user interface. It's really a culmination of a lot of feedback that we've gotten over the years from users like yourself. So a common theme throughout all of this is the fact that we've just added more spacing to your workflow inside Hexawise. So we're looking at the original, what used to be the Hexawise Inputs tab, we're now calling Parameters. It just made sense to do so. It's more intuitive. So we wanted to give everyone more space to add that here, define your model, define the critical testing ideas, and we still also have this bulk edit feature by using the toggle that just allows you to add your parameters in a more text-based format. I tend to use this a lot. It's just faster for me to do so, but totally up to you here. But this is the parameter screen. Again, more space to add them. That's a common theme throughout of all of this, as well as just making the tool and the navigation through it more intuitive for our users. So you'll notice that throughout. Now under this new rules section, we have two subcomponents to it. We're all used to the constraints, adding invalid pairs, bounded pairs. All of that is remaining intact under here, under the rules tab and under constraints. These are the standard constraints. Again, we decided to really club that together along with forced interactions that we'll talk about just because it made sense to do so. We're adding rules to our generated scenarios using things like the constraints tab. So you're seeing that here, our invalid pairs or bound pairs. And what we'll also do towards the end of this call is start to introduce to you all a more advanced feature that is actually a brand new functionality that we're happy to enable for any of you and any of your teammates that would like access to it. We're calling it advanced constraints. More to come there in a little bit here. But again, in general, just looking at the standard constraints view here, more space to work with. Again, we can collapse that sidebar on the left to view even more of this, trying to eliminate a lot of the scrolling that you used to have to do in the past. And again, that toggle that you're seeing up there, we'll take a look at advanced constraints in a little bit. That toggle acts like it did for parameters as well, where we can basically, we'll check out how we can now add our constraints in a more text-based format as well, using this new advanced constraints feature that we'll talk about in a bit here. So moving on to this forced interactions tab. Now this is one of my favorite aspects of this UI refresh because this is what we're all used to known as the requirements tab that is within the current UI, where we're forcing in interactions under that. Now that used to really confuse some people sometimes because requirements takes on a different meaning inside Hexawise than what we're all used to. So we wanted to make this capability more intuitive, calling it what it actually is, which is forced interactions. So basically forcing in those scenarios that we want to see in our generated scenarios. Now here is the generated scenarios button. Basically a lot more room to view our generated test cases. That's what it's called in the current UI. We changed it to scenarios just because it made sense to do so. But really, again, we're seeing a lot more space to view our generated scenarios here. We have all the same functionality related to selecting your level of thoroughness and your coverage strength. That's all there. So we liked how this turned out. Under scripts, we still have manual auto scripts. We also have Hexawise Automate that we clubbed together under scripts. This was formerly known as auto scripts. We're now just calling it scripts. Just made sense to do so. More intuitive, but here we have our manual scripts where we're designing test steps for our manual execution efforts or feeding into our test management tools like Jira or ALM or Octane or others. We can do all of that here, parameterize the steps, and we still have Hexawise Automate as well, where we're prepping our Hexawise scenarios for our automation efforts using this Gherkin setup, scenario outlines, scenarios, parameterizing these steps along the way as you're seeing here. And again, all of this is to provide you with outputs such as Gherkin feature files, skeletal code for automation, and dozens of different automation languages and frameworks. So more space to just look at that here. You're seeing a preview in real time of what the Gherkin feature file output looks like on the right there. Under the analysis tab, a lot of the same capabilities here, more room to view everything. Everyone's favorite coverage matrix, you're viewing that. We've made this a lot more dynamic recently, where you can view interactions that have not been covered, when they will first be covered, interactions that have been covered, and when they were first covered. Just making it more dynamic to clearly view this coverage that's being achieved after executing X number of your Hexawise test cases. And we still have the coverage graph here, more room to view it. We're still looking at the amount of coverage that we're achieving here after executing X number of our tests. We can also view different coverage strengths and the level of thoroughness that we're achieving there using the coverage graph. So that's the analysis tab. I really liked how this turned out as well. And I think, again, just giving people more space to work with here. Now, the review capability is kind of new, but it's a lot of the same features that we just kind of recategorized. I really like how our notes feature turned out. If you think about the current UI, if you add a note, it'll automatically populate anytime you open up the test plan. And it's really hard to view all the notes, especially if you're adding a bunch in the current UI. So we wanted to open that up, provide more space. You're seeing the new setup is kind of now like this chat bubble format, if you think of like iMessage, where you can view who's commenting, when they commented, easily view what they said. Really liked how that turned out. The mind map, one of favorite aspects of Hexawise as well really is this. We wanted to give users a lot more space to view this mind map when reviewing it with people like business analysts, managers, clients, stakeholders, or whoever. You saw that I collapsed the sidebar to view it even more. I really liked how this turned out. We just cleaned it up a bunch. And again, just made sense to put it under review because that's what we're doing. We're reviewing the model that we're creating. We still have the test plan scorecard. This is just giving you insights into your test plan that you've worked on so far. So outlining things that you've done really well, features that you've utilized, maybe some features that have not been utilized in this test plan and how you might want to use them. Again, nothing's mandatory here. It's just giving you some additional insights in your test plan to make sure we've covered all of our bases. Now, the share capability, nothing's really changed there. Moving on to export options, I will say. I really like how this view turned out. We're always building to this list as a side note based on client requests and feedback, but you're seeing the current options related to either test management efforts, test automation, or execution methods, like this automated test framework that allows us to generate skeletal code for automation. We can select from dozens of languages of frameworks, as you saw there. And we even have export options related to other test management tools like Tosca and Tricentis there.